All right, welcome guys to our YouTube channel where we're focused on raising private capital, investing with purpose. So, whether you're a new investor or an experienced investor or even a business owner, understanding the art of raising private capital is so crucial in today's competitive landscape. Join us as we navigate the complex realm of attracting investors, securing funding, and building meaningful relationships that fuel your business growth.
Hello, hello,
What's
everyone.
guys? How you guys are doing? I'm your host, Kelisha Carter, and I have my host, Betsy, with us today. Thank you guys for joining us. Man, it has been a week, but we are ready for this episode. It's going to be so much fun. How you doing over there, girl, in Georgia? Is it hot? In Florida?
It is hot. These days have been really hot, but I've been working a lot at home, so I haven't felt it really.
Yeah.
I do miss the mountains.
I mean, I think everywhere is experiencing this heat that's happening right now. I think right now in Florida is about like 90 something degrees, but I ain't going outside. I'll be
Yeah.
still. Everyone's be like, "We outside this summer?" No, I'm not. I am.
Yeah, I heard someone in Texas that it was like super hot. I was like,
It's very hot. But today we have a special guest. I think we both met this guest during one of our coaching programs they had. Our coach had a birthday bash, and he was a guest on the birthday bash. And when I tell you guys that this person, he had technical difficulties, and he was still on. His energy was top notch. He didn't get miserable, grumpy, like, oh, my internet isn't giving an issue. He had a positive attitude the
yeah,
entire
he was in his car.
car. And we're like, okay, talk about dedication, because some speakers will be like, I gotta go. Can we reschedule? No, he was in it to win it. And his story is
Inspiring.
very inspiring, and it just shows a lot that about persistence. It teaches a lot about persistence, never giving up, and not using whatever has happened to you in your past as an excuse. So before we even dive in, let's even welcome to the screen Myles. Hi.
What's up?
Oh, thank you for joining us today.
Oh yeah, I'm excited. Man, you guys are legit, dude. I love. I don't know. Maybe I haven't been on this
Other
system.
side.
Yeah, like, well, at least this, like, the StreamYard. What you guys are using, because the video intro, me seeing it, how you guys are doing it, dude, it's legit. You guys are doing some awesome stuff. Love it. It looks nice, really
Appreciate,
nice. Love it.
appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks for
Well,
having me.
before we begin, let's go over our disclaimer.
Yes.
The following information is for educational purposes only. Please do your own diligence. We do not provide financial, legal, or professional advice. Everything that we talk about is from our experience. We please advise you guys, please go out there and find the certified professionals. If you guys need anyone, you can let us know. We are constantly trying to collaborate with new people who we can guide you to, who we trust. So we're always building those relationships.
And thank you guys for following us, watching us. If you're new here, if you're just watching, this is the first video you stumbled upon for a show, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google Podcasts. We appreciate you guys so much. If you haven't even subscribed us yet, please make sure to do so. And after this episode as well, if you guys have more questions, you can feel free to comment live. Reach out to us, any one of us, especially Myles, if you have further questions. His handle is on the screen. So, Myles, before we let's dive in, like, tell us, for those who don't know, we know you have a ton of experience.
I know.
Your journey is so unique, but if you could wrap everything,
Yeah.
a little, what do you call this? A little ball, a nutshell,
With a little bow on top.
a little ball, yeah, with a little ball on
Yeah,
top. Like,
man.
what would you say?
Yeah, that's gonna be hard. But no, I'm just kidding. Adventurous. That's the one word. Just adventurous, man. But yeah, I'll try to make I'll make it quick. Essentially, thank you guys again for having me on, and always love doing this just because not really about me, but just for other people. Because real estate or investing, just whatever it is that you do is challenging. Anything that's worthwhile is challenging. And sometimes we get in our own world of like the challenges thinking that, we're the only ones going through this. And the reality is everybody's fighting some kind of battle. So hopefully I can encourage anyone who's, fighting something right now. But so just real quick, a little bit before real estate investing. So I was a wedding and commercial photographer for like 5.5 years. And it's funny you guys say I have like tons of experience. And I guess, yes, I have, just because I hit the ground running and I always just put my all and just go full throttle. But I've really only been investing for like 2.5 years. So it was 3 years ago when I heard about wholesaling, January of 2020. And I say 2.5 years because we'll kind of get into that. But of course, I had this crazy life altering experience. So I was really kind of out of it for like 6.5, 7 months, almost a year. But anyway, right before wholesaling, I was a wedding commercial photographer. So I shot, a lot of people know me from some big celebrities. Jamie Chung, I was a personal photographer for her in Atlanta. Mary Least, I was in New York a lot, all over in California, different places. A lot of people know me from Netflix, was a photographer for Love is Blind on Netflix. Yeah. You actually, if you watch the episode, you'll see me. I actually accidentally was like they had the camera going, and you could, if you watch the first season, the one that was like, legit, all of the seasons are actually pretty good. But that person was crazy. I remember when I got the call again, because I was in Atlanta, and almost taking the same approach to raising private capital is kind of how I became successful as a photographer, which is building relationships and really approaching it strategically. But anyway, so had a great career. The only reason I share that is not to be like, oh, I'm so amazing, but it just kind of show you can be on the top of the world and just your whole life just shifts. So was doing amazing things, traveling all over the world. I've been, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Mexico, DR. My wife and I, our honeymoon was in Belize because I had a wedding to shoot in Belize. Just timed our wedding for when I had to travel. But so all that to say, January hit and all of it disappeared, right? Because COVID happened. So everything just like evaporated essentially overnight. I mean, no one was taking photos or anything. So that's how I heard about wholesaling. There's a couple things in between there, but just through prayer, just through kind of trying to be still, but also still kind of like being a little proactive, like, man, I just got married, just had a baby, got to figure out something. So I actually heard about wholesaling on a YouTube video. So that's how I got started in real estate. And to make a long story short, basically did wholesaling for like 6 to 7 months, did really, really well. But then I was hit by a drunk driver going 91 miles per hour head on. And, I was that's kind of where I met some of the people that we know, obviously big names in the real estate. I was interviewed a ton because it was kind of like this tagline, 6 figures in 6 months. I was wholesaling like crazy, did all this stuff. And then bam, once again, just crazy life altering experience, minutes from death. And the only way to really save my life was to amputate my leg. So I'm a through knee amputee. And then I have tons of other sustaining injuries, like my left arm isn't functioning and my right foot has foot drop. So I have a brace in my foot. All these injuries that I deal with every day I wake up, it's like, it's like being in the middle of battle, you're like putting on your leg. It's like you stepped on an IED or something. I don't know. It's just crazy. But, it's all about mindset. So fast forward today, I'm still in real estate, just trying to, be the best husband, father that I can be. So in a nutshell.
It's amazing because some persons you will see that they went through that trauma. Yes, it would still affect you, but like you don't get that vibe from you where you're like, this is what happened and you're doing this and that. You don't make it like an excuse to do what you're doing and to still go after your goals. And we've been through like on your Instagram and heard your story so many different times. And just your energy after all of that, I'm like, man, it's amazing. Like just you right now, just like you having that bright smile. It's weird, so kudos to you. Like as you said, it's really about
the impression you give too. Because I remember when we first saw you, you were driving. You're like, oh, okay, hold on, like let me just. And I was like, wow, like is he really an amputee? Like what?
That's so funny. Yeah, I really am. I could definitely show the leg here, but yeah, and again, I don't want to take up I know we want to get into the investing side and all that stuff. So I'll just real quick just speak to that though, like because I posted that on on Threads, not to which I don't know, so everyone even knows what that is yet, right? If people are still hopping up there. If you're not on Threads, you better jump on that.
Yeah.
But I posted that on Threads about just the idea that it's never about the size of the problem; it's always the size of you. Because what happens is there's any challenge or problem in your life, and if we just focus on that one thing, then it does become in our minds the one thing. And the reality is there's many things in our lives. A lot of times there's more things that we can be grateful for and be positive about and be thankful for. But when we focus on whatever that challenge is, then it sort of trumps all those things. So it just it just feels like, that's all that's happening right now. Right. And, it's kind of funny. There's different phrases and stuff that you'll hear that reflect that, right? Like when people say, you'll hear maybe quotes like, the things you're struggling or the things you have issues with, there's someone out there praying for, right? Or like the problem thing, you just, someone just hit your car and you're like, oh my gosh, it's like your whole day is like, you're pissed, you're angry, you're like, maybe have an attitude to that person and maybe they cut you off, maybe they did something, they did whatever. There's all this stuff about hitting your car, but there's like someone who had their car repossessed or they can't afford a car. They wish they could even just buy a car and they got to walk like, miles to get to whatever it is. Right. And it's like, the problem, the thing is always just the thing. There's nothing that is just that. It's always our perspective, right? It's the same sun that melts the wax hardens the clay, right? So the sun is still the sun, but it's just like, who are you inside? Like, are you waxed? Are you clay? Because the challenge is going to be the challenge. It's just how you respond to it. So, but anyway.
That was so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to save. We could go into a ton of other stuff, obviously, about mindset and all this, but I know that's not what this podcast is for. But yeah, it was a lot of working on mindset for a while. I'm glad I did that. Obviously, obviously I didn't know something like this would happen, but it's important to work on your mindset for sure.
Yeah. So even with that, like, at what point in your career did you like decide that, okay, I need to figure out how to raise capital for my deals? Like,
oh yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's funny you say that. It's a great transition for anybody. Everyone has their own approach to real estate, but I truly believe if anyone's just getting started, literally they have like no idea about real estate investing, I think wholesaling is just a really great way to sort of mitigate your risk, but just learn a lot about real estate. So wholesaling real estate is really great. And I know a lot of people get started in a lot of different ways, and that's fine. But the reason I say that is because when you get started in real estate and you choose the route of wholesaling, you find that you're selling all your deals to make money. So that's to answer your question about when was that, sort of transition. Well, again, it was about 6 to 7 months of me wholesaling. I got hit by a drunk driver, and thankfully I had capital from deals that I, was wholesaling. So, that kind of pushed me through the whole 6 to 7 months of just sort of rehab and just kind of getting back to learning how to live life. And when obviously I wasn't working and we were a one income family, my wife was already stay at home because, I was kind of doing a good bit of deals. So thankfully wholesaling allowed for that to happen. But what I didn't realize, or what I did realize is, every deal stopped, right? Like, if you're not finding that next deal, if you're not wholesaling that next deal or selling that next deal, then, you're back down to zero. Every check you make, I just say it's a ticking time bomb to zero. So now, of course, people can say, oh, well, you want to create a whole wholesaling company and business then, right? Like you have a whole, and that's a whole nother game, right? And I think people identify whether they want to even do that. For me, I don't want to have a whole wholesaling I've done that where I've had, multiple acquisitions manager, dispositions manager, TC, cold call. I mean, I've done all of that. And I just, I identified that wasn't really the route I wanted to take. But what I knew was I want to create reoccurring revenue in real estate. And the only way that you can really do that is to learn how to acquire real estate, because then you can learn how to whatever exit strategy that can pay you over and over, whether it's, doing wrap mortgages and you're not in the deal anymore, not paying property taxes or insurance, but you're still getting net income, or whether it's a rental property and you own the asset and you're getting all the depreciation, all these different things you can, but you got to take title to be able to even do a wrap, right? You got to close on it. So all this stuff required me to I got to buy something, and I didn't have a ton of money. The money I was using was just to obviously get through the rehab. So that's kind of where the switch happened, where I was like, man, I need to learn how to leverage private money, because I learned from a friend who essentially mentioned it, that he had a private lender who lent him money to be able to do a deal. That was actually even before my accident. So I kind of had the bug in my mind. I just didn't know exactly how to go about it. And then I can talk to you about my first private money lending experience. And that's what kind of opened the doors of like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So,
because it's funny, because I love that you brought that up. That was going to be our next question. Like, when after figuring that out, tell us about that first deal that you used private money for, and give us like a breakdown of how that was structured.
Yeah. So I so I have this thing. I teach people like really tired landlords. I love just the whole market of tired landlords. So there's a lot of different, markets in real estate you can go after, obviously foreclosures, probate, whatever, different things. I really love tired landlords because there's just so many there's just so many different avenues you can take someone who's a tired landlord. And I'll just touch on real quick because then that sort of segues into kind of what happened. So, tired landlord, number one, they're tired. So they're motivated, right? There's some people you can go after that, maybe want to sell for sale by owner, but they're not really that motivated. So you're not able to get the greatest deal. But a tired landlord, they're tired. So they really are motivated. Secondly, they're a landlord. So that means they are an investor, which also means that they have an idea of basically getting paid every month, reoccurring revenue. They're a landlord. So they understand getting paid monthly. So you can actually, it's a little bit easier to communicate with them, creative finance, seller finance, right? So it helps you to get into deals a little bit better. They're a landlord, which means a lot of times they own maybe not always just one property, multiple properties. Maybe they own 3, 5, 10, 15, 30. So you can do one deal with them and then they, have multiple other deals that you can do. I've done like so many multiple deals with that same seller, transaction before. So there's that. And then again, because they have an investor mind most of the time, because they're landlords, not only can you help sell one of their deals, but you can actually go back to them, which I know this is probably another question we might ask, is like ways to find private money lenders. You can go back to them and convert them into a private money lender. People don't realize that. Think about it. If you help someone sell their house and they just netted, 150 grand, the question is like, okay, what are they going to do with that?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And maybe it's a retail seller who's just selling a home because they're going to go put a down payment and buy another. Okay, that's one thing. But there are individuals that are just selling the property because they're just tired of dealing with it, but they didn't necessarily have a plan of where those funds were going to go. So anyway, there's ways that you can find tired landlords. So one of the ways is you can actually go on Facebook Marketplace. Very easy. This is a free way. If you don't have maybe the money to get systems and all this stuff, you can literally just go on Facebook Marketplace. This is one of the things that I would do. I know it's probably totally random. I don't know how many other people maybe talk about this or say this, but and I will literally spend maybe 5-10 minutes. I'll just block out 5-10 minutes. And I'll look for all of the for rent properties that do not look like they are managed by property managers or have like really nice photos. It's just someone who kind of took like iPhone photo, or they just listed, this house that they have that, maybe old school, but they're listing it for rent. And I will literally reach out to them, maybe 10 to 15 of them, and just say, hey, I'm actually not interested in renting this property. I was curious if you'd be open to selling the property. Right. And so I'll do that. And you'd be surprised. You'll get no, of course not. I'm renting it. No, I'm renting. No, I'm renting. No, I'm renting. No, I'm renting. But then you might have someone goes, well, I mean, potentially. Whoa, what do you mean potentially? Right? Because maybe they were having issues trying to rent it out, or maybe that's just what they knew. Like, I just got to rent this again, but they really don't want to do it all over again. So you just hit them at the right time. You just never know. Right? So that's how you can find a tired landlord. So I did that on Facebook Marketplace. I was looking at a property, and this one, I asked the lady, I said, hey, would you be interested in selling this property? Mm-hmm. And she actually said, because they forgot to take it down, I guess. And they said, no, we actually sold this one. And I was like, oh, wow, you guys already sold this one. Because I guess they had it but they just decided to like sell it. They were maybe trying to rent it, but then they just sold it and they actually got it sold. And I was like, oh, dang, because I was excited. I was like, oh, look, this happened. They actually were like selling this property, but dang it, they already sold it. So I was like, well, do you guys have anything else that you're looking to sell? And she said, no, we don't, because we sold everything. And I was like, you guys sold off all your rentals? You just sold off all your rentals? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, why that? Because at this point I didn't understand. I understand now why people do that. But at that point I was like, why would someone sell all day we hear about buy rentals, buy real estate, buy real estate. So I'm like, why would you sell all your rental property? And she said, we got into triple net leases. So we just bought our first Dollar Tree. Now I got fired up because even probably a majority of the people that are going to even listen to this podcast, they probably aren't like focusing on learning about or studying like triple net leases in that commercial space. I find it's a very small group of people. I'm very much about passive income, true passive income, not just rental landlord income. No. And I was like, oh my gosh, because you can't find, you go on YouTube and you type in triple net lease and it's like old school people or like these commercial broker, like you're not going to find like, some of these big gurus you hear that talk about all, creative finance, rental properties, fix and flips. You're not going to find all this stuff about, triple net leases and stuff like that. So I was fired up because I was like, what? This is someone who really is like a real life person I can talk to in my area that actually has done this. And they bought their first Dollar Tree. So anyway, I'm young. They're a little bit older, in their late, I think maybe, mid to late 40s. So they bought up a bunch of rentals, and at the end, 40s, late 40s phase, they sold all this stuff off to go into something much more passive. So she's all like kind of taken back that like this young guy, like in his 20s is like asking about, triple net lease, or is like excited about it. So we just ended up connecting on that. And I explained to her my goals, and I was like, this is what I'm trying to do. Like, I would love to get to that point of like being able to buy a property, but then, at some point take all of those assets and then just move them into, much more passive. But honestly, I don't even want to wait until I buy up a bunch of stuff. I'd love to just be able to like, find partners or just, figure out a way to raise some capital to be able to just like even get into these deals. Yeah. And literally, no joke, she's like, well, I mean, we have some capital, we have some cash. I mean, it's not something I've really done before, but, I'd be open to it. Wow. And I was like, wow. Like being a lender. And before, and I'll maybe stop because maybe you guys might have some questions, but I think a good point to make here is how sometimes we think private money lenders are this such like unicorn or suit and tie, or they're only at meet. Like, dude, there's so many people that, oh my gosh, the list of private money lenders I have today, they range from all over the place. I mean, newly married couples that just have like 20K in the bank that want to lend to, one of the lenders I just paid off today that lent over $350,000 on a deal. That's an, experienced investor. I mean, they range from all over. And I think if people just recognize that you're not looking for a private money lender and it has this sort of stigma, but you're just looking for someone who has cash that they have no idea what to do with, or at least they have cash that they want to make a return and they don't really know where the best place to put it, or, they haven't found that yet. So you're providing service.
Because one thing that I've learned before, when I just started raising capital, was that anyone could be a private money lender. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Even if it's 20K, you could do something with that, because you might be doing a project and all you need is 15,000-20,000. Oh yeah. And you have that one person in your back pocket. You're like, oh, I met this person. That person could be a private money lender. A deal for 5,000-10,000, it might not seem a lot, but it just depends on the investor and what they need the money for. So I'm really glad that you brought it up. And the key thing that you mentioned was that you said to the landlord, the lady, was that I'm thinking now of getting a partner. You're silently like planting the seed.
Oh yeah.
Ask her like, what do you mean? Or tell me more. So that is so smart that you did that. A lot of persons always forget to do something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I always tell people, if you really want to sort of expedite like just being able to have private money lenders come to you, or you find private money lenders, a lot of times, unless you're just so actively documenting your journey and you're just like all over everywhere, they're not going to just like come to your door and just like reach out. I mean, I have people now that obviously they just see what I'm doing because you just document, which is another way to find private money lenders, which let's just kind of, I know we're maybe getting close to kind of our half hour here. So let's talk about some of these ways you can find private money lenders. I have all kinds of crazy ways. I mean, there's like very practical ways. There's very like, just simple ways, unique ways. Here's like a very practical way, like literally as much as possible, always tell people that you are involved in real estate. Talk about real estate. I think it's crazy that we, even if you're just getting started, like when people ask like, like, oh, what do you do or whatnot? And look, I know some people maybe teach like having this sort of little pitch that maybe like gets people interested. Like, maybe you're a wholesaler, but they tell you what you should say is like, my career is helping people get a higher return on their data. Yeah, I mean, you can do all that if you want, but I wouldn't necessarily say most people should really go that route. I mean, just be natural. And I just say, look, man, I am looking, what I do in real estate, or what I do is I buy houses, man. I try to buy real estate, buy houses, and I partner with people to be able to do that. And people sometimes go like, oh, you partner with people, or they just hear, maybe nothing even comes after that, but you put the bug in their head that you buy real estate, and you kind of have the conversation with them about what they do. But you try to learn how to tie in the fact that if maybe they are in a position where they might be open or interested in learning more about partnering with you or what to do with their funds. I just find it, basically having a very casual conversation about even money and what people are doing with their money. Even if you can get to the point of the conversation of like, yeah, I think real estate's amazing because, if you're trying to buy real estate, it's great. I've said this before to someone random, we're just talking about real estate. I'm like, yeah, buying real estate is awesome because I can, invest in real estate and buy real estate. But the way I buy real estate is I, partner with people. So I have, people that have cash in the bank that, they're just like, they don't really know where to put it. It's just sitting there. And I mean, like money sitting in the bank, you're not making that much, the banks are giving you like less than 1% a year. So, it's cool because I can partner with them and, we can work together and I can give them a much higher rate. And, it's just cool, whatever. I just do it very casual like that, right? I'm like, yeah, it's just it's fun. It's cool, right?
We're the same. I think we get this question all the time. And person like, what is your pitch? And I'm like, I used to have a pitch, but then now it's like, it depends who I'm talking to. And it depends where I'm at. Yeah. And we would just start that conversation. And I do the same thing that you do. It's like, I buy real estate and we partner. That is always the key word. I love using that keyword.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All day. Cause I mean, that's what it is. It's a partnership. Yeah. Every deal that I've ever bought to this day, it has never been by myself. When people say I buy real estate, of course I know I'm saying like, oh, I buy real estate or I buy houses or whatever. But what we're really saying is, unless you really are just like using cash to just buy everything, which is a whole nother game. Most people aren't really doing that. But what we're really saying is I buy real estate partnered with lenders, right? Like and that's period. Even if it's using the bank, that's a partnership. The bank lent the money. I mean, you couldn't have closed on it if they didn't loan the money. So whether it's a bank, whether it's hard money, whether it's a private capital individual, like we're partnering together. I'm controlling the asset. I'm managing the asset, remodeling it. I'm doing whatever on the exit, whatever it is, but they are they're financing this and it's a partnership. So yeah, I mean, that's absolutely correct. Yeah. I love it.
But before we wrap up, I'm curious, like, well, this might be a two-part question. Have you ever, because I know you're doing businesses as well, apart from real estate, other things. Have you ever raised capital for those businesses as well? I think.
So to be honest, I actually haven't really got into like raising capital for businesses because the other businesses that I'm doing are still somewhat like integrated within real estate. It's not necessarily like an entire different like type of business where I'm raising capital for that. Yeah. So I don't really, so I haven't raised capital for any sort of like business. But before we wrap up, because I think it'll just be unique. I don't think anyone's probably going to say this. I will share. This is another unique way to find a private money lender if you're open to it, right? So again, we've talked about you can document your journey, put it out there that you're, you can even put out there that, hey, I'm looking to partner with people that want to make, a better return on their capital, if it's just sitting in the bank, et cetera. Like there's people that, literally will just go on Facebook and do a video or a post, talking about that. That's one way you can do that. It's like literally just like raising capital. But another way that a lot of times people don't realize that's, I mean, you got to have, a little bit of courage, but, I've actually found a private money lender doing this. And people don't realize is when, like, let's say I go buy a property and then let's just take an example. The one I just bought a house yesterday, and this kind of ties into having people with a little bit less capital, maybe 20K or 30K. And you're thinking, well, what can I do with that? Yeah. You can actually buy a whole house with that, right? If you utilize creative finance. So I just bought a house yesterday in Spartanburg, and it was seller finance. So 135 purchase price, $25,000 down, and 30-year note. And essentially that down payment, I partnered with a private money lender to cover the down payment and the closing costs and all that stuff. And it ended up being $35,000 total is what I borrowed. So that's what they had. So $35,000 to be able to take control of his asset, and it's fully remodeled. So 3-bed, 2-bath, fully remodeled. So anyway, the reason I'm bringing that up is because when I borrow that $35,000, when you do this the right way, this is what should happen. There are 2 documents, a deed of trust and a promissory note, right? So that promissory note outlining what the whole situation is, what you're paying back, how much, et cetera. The deed of trust, it's securing that mortgage now to this asset. So it's protecting the person who's loaning the money. It's a deed of trust. Now, the reason why this is important to understand, and again, we might be going too in depth, but if someone's really, really brand new and they're like, well, what the heck? I don't have a deed of trust or promissory note. Guys, you just work with an attorney. So the attorneys can draft that up. It costs me like $200, $250. You just work with your closing attorney and you just ask them, hey, can you draft that up? They'll draft up the promissory note, deed of trust. You just let them know exactly what the terms are, what you need. And when they draft that up, that is going to be recorded So that is a recorded mortgage. That is recorded. But see, when I even say that, it doesn't necessarily ring yet on people's minds. But the reality is that's public information. So I've actually taught people and I teach people how you can actually literally go find properties that were newly renovated, fix and flip properties, and go on the public data and look for who those individuals that actually went on those deals. And here's another crazy thing is sometimes, especially if they're just legit like mom and pop private money lenders, they're going to have their address. They're going to have either their name or their LLC. I don't know if I should share all this, but hey, it is.
No, I've done that before.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
And guess what I've done? So I literally write all these addresses down, and you can skip trace them. And I literally go one by one. Hey, I saw that you were a lender on this property, and it was beautiful property. It's awesome. I was just calling. I know it's kind of random out of the blue. But I was just curious if you were still in the market of like lending money and getting cash. Because here's the thing, you might think it's a little weird, like what the heck, you're like calling them, like they're like, how'd you get my number? But the reality is if they were lending on the deal, chances are they are in the mindset of like, that's a good strategy for my money. So if they have their money back, it doesn't matter if you're kind of like randomly popping up, like they're just like, oh wow, okay, maybe another person I could get more money, or have my money work for me more. So anyway, that's just kind of a little nugget out there for anyone listening.
I love that you mentioned that you text. So I've done that as well, but I've only did mail.
Okay.
Yeah, I did a ton, but I think I've only had like 2 success from it, which it was still good.
Well,
that is like, a lot of persons don't do it because you might think about it, and when you start going through the county website, you're like, okay, this is a lot to go through.
Yeah.
Some persons might get discouraged, but it can be worth it because there's a list. People that's there.
And you don't have to do a ton, right? Like you can just literally, it's all about breaking these down into smaller, like manageable chunks. I mean, maybe just take 5 or 6 and just try giving them a call or reaching out to them. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Maybe another day or 2 days later, try it again. But the reality is if you don't do it, then it'll never happen. And I legit have private money relationships because of doing that. And I mean, it just continues to increase what capital you have available to buy stuff. So why not do it? So, and there's tons of other ways, but anyway, I just thought that was like a very unique way to do it.
That is one way that a lot of persons, it's a gem that people sleep on.
Oh yeah.
Definitely a gem that people, and the list is free. I'll tell you guys where else you can get it, but but no, like this has been so good. I love the fact that like when you go in, you really go into details, and we've talked about these things on our podcast as well. But it's always nice to hear from other guests. Just preaching the same thing that we preach about, structuring deals, finding deals, the documents, the paperwork, because it's always different when you're just hearing from us.
Yeah.
But just hearing it from a guest who's out there doing it, it's like reassurance. So that's pretty good. And it was great for having you here and like sharing your experience. Man. Because you were like, what should I talk? Like, you know your stuff.
Yeah,
I try.
This is another one of those episodes that you're just gonna have to rewatch because you said so many things that were like, yeah, that. Oh yeah, that. Yeah, I need that too. So it was really, really good. Thank you for joining us. So whether you're looking to finance your next real estate project, launch a new venture, or expand an existing business, we hope this episode gave you some insights and strategies needed to navigate the intricacies of raising private capital so you can invest with purpose. See you guys next time.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much, and thank you, Myles.